Let's see, where are we? Left Yosemite National Park in California. This would have been end of August, going towards September. Made our way to Sacramento, California, the capital of California, state capital, and also the site of the Sutter's Mill Gold Rush, and talked about the interesting rivers and waterways that go through that town. I think it's two main rivers, the Sacramento River and the American River. In any case, met this guy who claimed to occasionally break into houses or cars or vans and whatnot and steal, like, I guess, radio equipment and tea sets, silver tea sets and stuff, cameras. Showed me a camera at least one time that he claimed he stole, and showed me how to tell about some items that are silver, if they're really silver, or if they're just plated silver. And I don't know, it didn't show me much else. I really didn't see him do anything, so I'm not going to claim that his claims are absolute truth. Ask you to just accept that I probably accepted that he was probably involved in some kind of crime, street crime, but didn't seem like a bad guy. I mean, you know, you meet guys, you meet people, girls, whatever, that on the outside of it, talking to them, hanging out with them, there's nothing suspicious or strange or dangerous or threatening about their character. They seem to be a normal person. But maybe they've just got a weird proclivity to doing something, and that's their way of existing. And I've talked to people about my road adventures, and a lot of them ask me, why don't you steal a car? And why don't you go in and shoplift food and stuff out of grocery stores and stuff? And why don't you panhandle more and stuff? And, you know, all those would have been possible ways to make it a little bit better on the road. Or when you're out there under dire circumstances, but I don't guess I ever got quite that desperate. That's a lot of it. If you can kind of keep your composure and feel like you're surviving without having to do a lot of those other things, then more power to you, you know. Part of it, I'm sure, was the fear of being caught. I completely copped to being afraid of being incarcerated. I don't like jail. I was in jail a few times. I've already mentioned, I think, maybe once or twice. But most of the times were very short, was just picked up for something like drinking in public or public urination or something, and not having a place to live where they'd say, okay, well, you got to stay in town and, you know, come to the court case so that you get your fine and whatever. And I probably never got back to some of the court cases on some of those, although I think all of them got cleared up, and they weren't big charges. It was like walking on the freeway, jaywalking against the light, public urination, drinking on the beach. Those are the kind of things I got arrested for. And those brought a day or two of being in jail here and there, so I saw enough of it to know I didn't want to get stuck that way if I could help it. So I was a little afraid of being caught, and that was enough. I mostly kept straight, and I don't know, you know, I'm sure some people grow up on the other side of the tracks, as they call it, and robbing or breaking and entering and street crimes, street thuggery comes more natural to them. And I don't want to say bad things about that. I mean, I think that it is bad when in a society, the society is broken down enough to where those kind of crimes become more and more frequent, more and more common. And sure, it's their fault. They have a choice. But when you look at the choices that some of the people have, you can understand how, at one point or another, their big choice was whether that's the kind of life they want to go with, if that's how they want to exist. And I'm not sure that all of us haven't been tempted or in some ways broken little laws or rules or whatever here and there in our own amount, you know. We're all guilty of something. Everyone has lied. Everyone. Petty theft in my time. I have stolen a few things. Definitely all under $100 worth of value, so definitely just little inconsequential things, like growing up as a kid and whatnot. But I did get called a time or two, or I did go through a soul searching of myself and ask myself, is it really worth it? The guilt, you know, you carry the guilt afterwards, or some of us do. Some people don't have as strong of a guilt mechanism. And you come to your own conclusions and figure out whether or not that's what you're about. If you're willing to take those chances and risks and willing to accept that about yourself as far as being a fellow human being, that you're not just a fellow human being, you're a fellow human being who takes advantage of other human beings. And in some cases, you know, it's not even illegal advantage that you're taking. So there's all kinds of variations of that, you know. If you accept money from your family a lot, and I don't mean like around Christmas or birthdays or something where they might give you $10 or $100, depending on how your family's healed, how much money you've got or they've got. But if you're constantly calling them for money for the rent or money for a new dress or a new car or a new whatever, and you constantly don't seem to be able to do any good for yourself and have to rely on others, there's a little bit of a moral thing going on there. You know, how much of life are you willing to suck off of other people? You know, whether that's stealing or not, it's maybe not as drastic, but it is a sort of parasitic, you know, lifestyle. And know for certain, I've lived that too, you know. When I was on the road, I was calling home for money all the time. And when I was at school, at college, I was calling home for money. And when I got back from being on the road and out of college and working for myself, I went back to living at home under my parents' roof and asking for money all the time. So I've definitely been down that road too. 30-year-old virgin's got nothing on me. In fact, he at least was working on his own, had his own apartment in that movie, if you see that movie. And I've been a working part of society since, I mean steady working, since at least mid-'80s or so when I got back off the road. I worked quite a bit before I went on the road, before 1981, and then about 1984 when I was back off the road I went back to work. So it was about a 4-year hiatus that I still worked some then, but it wasn't regular jobs, it was just pickup jobs here and there. And so for the most part I've been a working, free living adult and taking care of business, you know, when it came along best I could. But, you know, we all go through those changes and make as best of ourselves as we can and still come up short. I feel like I'm coming up short now. My lifestyle now is not as enriched as I feel like it could be. Now I have a lot of things I'm very grateful for and very thankful for. A lot of it's books and movies and artwork and things like that. Music. That I'm very grateful for having and grateful for being able to live and work and mostly take care of my bills and have a few of those nice luxuries on the side. At this point in my life, I'm 55 years old, so it's like, I can't drive 55, you know. And yet, there's a lot that I feel like I wish that I had at this point in my life attained. Number one, it would have been nice to have had a house by now. If I was practically free of paying off mortgage note or whatever on a house to where I actually owned the place where I lived, and basically from then on my rent was not rent or not a mortgage payment, but was just whatever property tax and insurance premiums would accrue to owning property like that. It'd be a nice place to be at this stage in my life, and I just never really accomplished that. So that's something that'd be nice to be able to stand in, hold as my own. Having enough money or making enough money where I feel like if my car broke down, I could either replace it or I could get to what I got fixed. And I'm kind of borderline there, but mind you, I've got a 1998 car, so it's old. For 2012, that makes the car 14 years. Is that the right math? So it's getting on in character. And I'll drive it till it falls apart. I mean, I hope it doesn't fall apart. And repairs are almost always cheaper than buying a new or new used car. But at some point, that car is liable to be less functional for me, and I'm liable to have to buy another car. And even a cheap used car nowadays runs you $5,000 to $7,000. I mean, you're lucky to find something in that range, even if your needs and your standards are low, even if your requirements are just that it runs and gets you to work and back. $5,000 to $7,000 is rock bottom. That's just about as low as it gets. Now you can run into all kind of deals through a church or through friends or through acquaintances at work or family, and make a better deal than that by all means. But if you go to Drive Time, or if you go to I can't think of that auto place, CarMax, or you go to any of the used car lots around town, and I just mean in the U.S. in general, in the 2012 year, you're going to be lucky to drive off with a lot with anything under 7,000. You're going to be lucky. So for me right now, making what I'm making, that would be just humongous amount of expense. Even if I could make payments on it, it would be difficult for me to make that big leap. And yet I know with a 14-year-old car, I'm going to have to do that pretty soon. It's likely I'm going to have to do that. I'm not planning on it, and my car is still running, knock on wood. And hopefully it'll last another 10 years. And this would have been a moot question, but I'm not too naive to know that that would probably be an exceptional car that could go that long and not have major repairs. And we're talking about, engine trouble, transmission trouble, major repairs that would run you a couple of $1,000s. Some of that nowadays, it's in that ballpark, would cost about that much. And all that means is it becomes more desirable to look at something newer. If you had a 14-year-old car, but you can find a 8-year-old car for $5,000, and you're going to pay $2,000 to repair your 14-year-old car, it's almost worth getting the $3,000 difference and buying that new used car that's only 8 years old for $5,000. And then make repairs on it as you need, and hopefully it'll last you 10 or 15 years.